Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Eddy. We are here on Know the Ledge. As you can see, podcast radio is not the easiest thing. I'm back doing this thing at home. So we will be doing what we were doing during COVID, which is have individuals from all over the world sit down for about 20 to 30 minutes, have a conversation, so you guys can appreciate what happens out there. And if you are live right now, if you're here with me, you get the inside scoop. And maybe in a week or two, we will be dropping the interview for you on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, welcome to Know the Ledge. This is the conversation, and I'm sitting down with someone that I've been following on the low for quite a while. I'll be honest. I've been following you for quite a while. Just looking at your journey, appreciating because I do believe that some of the qualities that you have are some of the qualities I hope to have when I am where you are. So I've been following you for a little bit, learning, looking at how you move, and some of the things you do, and I've been trying to kind of apply that in my little ecosystem that I live in. But the interesting thing is, I know a lot of people will not know who you are. So why don't we start off by you introducing yourself and telling us what you do? There's a lot of what you do,
Yeah,
but
always such a difficult thing to answer. Uh, yeah, well, my name is Kojo Bafam, so I think that's the easiest and simplest place to start.
yeah.
In terms of, in terms of who am I, and in terms of what do I do, um, yeah, it is a very difficult question to ask because we tend to look at what somebody does as a profession, and that tends to be like our starting point. Like, okay, what do you
Mm,
do for a living? If I tell you what I do for a living, then perhaps you have some kind of handle on who I am as a person.
mm,
I've worked in many different spaces and done many different things for a living, um, and I eventually boiled it down to I'm a storyteller,
mm,
uh, and I primarily write. But I'd say in my more recent history, I've worked primarily in the media. So I've edited magazines. I used to have a radio show. I now freelance and consult to different people and different brands around writing and content strategy and that sort of stuff. I know the struggles of running a podcast because I also have a podcast that I started about 2 years ago, and I end up taking these long forced breaks while I try to figure out whether it's recording, whether it's time, whether it's
mm.
guests, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Okay.
that in a nutshell is I'm
Yeah.
a father, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son.
Oh, awesome, awesome. That is awesome. What I like to say is I'm a teacher, because it kind of boils down everything that I do, like whether it's podcasting or that is taking the road lesser traveled, or at my day job, which is interacting with kids and teaching them the arts and innovation. So I think I'm right there. You're a storyteller. I'm a
Yeah,
teacher.
like the way the world is. In some instances, in this particular instance, we're not moving with the world, right?
Yeah.
Because the days of somebody doing one thing or somebody being defined by a particular profession
Mm,
um, falls very short of understanding another human being.
mm-hmm,
So, I know consultants. I know, for example, I know a good friend of mine. He's in the change management space, and
mm,
he's a change management consultant. But we grew up loving hip hop. He did illustrations for me. He DJs. He's passionate about basketball and still plays, and his kids are now playing.
mm.
Uh, and so to say, okay, he's a consultant, like a management consultant, says nothing about the human being that you're dealing with.
Yeah. That's true. And I like to say that we're multifaceted human beings. Most of us speak at least, especially in Africa, we speak at least two languages.
Yeah,
So that means you can understand two things that are said to you at once, which means you can also do two things at a time. So if you're just stuck doing one thing, then you're only pulling from half of your potential.
yeah, and
So
your neurons are firing, right? So the
exactly, yeah,
neurons in our brains, kind of the connection gets lost.
yeah,
But I mean, it's been shown that if you're, multilingual, if you do different things, then
yeah.
you're actually helping fire up multiple paths in the brain.
That's right. Yeah, completely agreed. But how did you come to the realization that, oh, I can do this and I can do that and I can do that, or I can also do that?
Um, I don't know. It's just so I mean, I was raised by a former academic, an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. My
Mm-hmm.
father is Ghana, and when he went into business, started different businesses. So
Mm-hmm.
at some stage, we had management consulting company, we had a monthly magazine, we had an insurance brokerage, we had a shop selling hair products and cosmetics. And I grew up in Maseru, so this was all in Lesotho.
Oh, okay.
And so growing up and working in the family businesses, I'm having to navigate different things. But the thing, and when I say I'm a storyteller with the writing being at my core, it's because writing is something that I've always done. So I was always encouraged to put my thoughts down. I used to write poetry. I used to write little essays for myself um, that I'd eventually get rid of. Uh, so I mean, I was taught that if you want to make sense of something, get it out of your head. And the way that I
Mm-hmm.
get it out of my head is by putting it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from a, let's say, from a professional perspective and from a working perspective, because we had so many different businesses, I was also taught that certain business principles are the same. It doesn't matter what the product is, what the platform is, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, then the writing thing was something that I always did. So it at some stage it was like my therapy. Um, because I used to work with my father, I used to have to write proposals. I used to help edit his writing and his reports and that sort of stuff. So I was constantly exercising that. And later on in life, so for example, in the early 2000s or late 1990s, early 2000s, um, I had a cousin who was in television, and
Mm-hmm.
they needed to be able to, when pitching to do a new show,
Yeah.
they have to take the idea of the show and put it into paper.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. So I sat and translated their thoughts into words. Um, and so gradually discovered that this is an avenue that I could do for a living.
Mm. And when did you transition? Because I always feel like there's what you do for a living, and then there's the hobby, right, where you're like, okay, um I'm doing this but I'm working somewhere, and then there's a point where you discover that maybe what you're doing on the side or what you're doing for a living is actually what you want to get serious about. When did you make that transition and you thought, okay, I think I'm really good at this and I think I can get paid from this thing that I'm doing?
I haven't made a transition because I was never in the place where it was. That's why I would say it's hard for me to define myself according to the work that I
Mm,
do.
yeah,
Because the work that I do, I mean, to give you a quick snapshot, right? So in, let's say, from 2000, I had my own IT consulting company with a business partner. I left that
yeah.
to work with a fashion designer, and I used to run fashion shows. And then I worked with what did I do from there? So fashion designer, then I worked with a small record label, and then I was a project manager at the South African Post Office for a franchising project.
Wow, okay.
And then before that, I also worked as a booker at an actors agency. and then the post office. And after the post office, and during this time, I was doing poetry and running shows and trying to build a career as a poet.
Yeah.
And so after that, I mean, since then, I've worked in television. So I used to produce and do content for television production company. I I was founding editor for my first magazine, which is called Black. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I then what? And then I was freelancing in between that, and then I ended up at Destiny Man magazine as the editor there. So
Mm.
Destiny Man magazine is the longest and the most consistent I've had a single job title, and I was there for
Okay.
4 years.
Oh
And
wow.
since I left, I've had a radio show, I have freelanced, like I've done different things.
Yeah.
So other than when I worked for my family before I moved to
Yeah.
Joburg, 99, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I was working with my father, you could say I had a consistent job.
Yeah.
This was after university, so I finished university end of '94. So
Yeah.
'94 to '99, I worked in the family businesses, and
Yes.
then from there coming to Joburg, '99 2000, it took till 2010 for me to be in a job that it was a proper job.
Yeah.
Like until then, I'd never really had like a a fixed job for that period of time. And like I said, it
Yeah.
was just weird. So, so for
Yeah.
me, there's been no transition. It's like it's it's. I also don't. I don't look at. So I don't look at it that way. So I
Yeah.
don't look at my life that way. And over the last couple of years, I've started to refine that a lot more in terms of the work that I do. um, I look at what's to a certain extent it's a means to an end.
Mm.
It's a means to an end in terms of the life that I'm looking to live and the life that I'm looking and the lifestyle I'm looking to build for my family.
Yeah.
Um, and it's focused more on writing and storytelling and content
Yeah.
because that's where I guess I've built some equity within the society.
Mm. Okay.
It's easier for me to get that kind of work.
Yeah.
Uh, and and I mean, I was talking to a friend recently about this idea of passion. All right.
Mm. I
So
was actually gonna go into that, but go ahead.
so for me, I do not operate, and I used to say this to piss people off. I used to say passion is overrated.
Mm.
Um, so when I was doing poetry and I was trying to build a career in poetry, that that destroyed any type of love I had for poetry.
Mm.
Because in the lead up to that period, I used to write for myself. And even when
Mm.
I started performing, um, like I discovered you could get up on a stage, mumble some poems, and people appreciate or not appreciate. But that was
Mm-hmm.
an avenue. But the minute it started becoming how I put food on the table, how I viewed it changed. Because
Mm.
now I'm trying to find clients, I'm trying to get
Yeah.
bookings, I'm trying to get commissions. If I'm not getting them, why am I not getting them? There's a
Mm.
frustration attached to it.
Yes.
So to a certain extent, um, you know, like we don't have hobbies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're always trying to monetize everything that we do.
Everything. Yeah.
Um, and for me, it's sometimes I think if you're really passionate about something, don't do that to put food on the table. Do that because it fulfills you.
Yeah. I always feel like if you're passionate about something, the money will come anyway. Because if you make people smile while you're making yourself smile, then they're actually happy to compensate you for what you're doing. And sometimes they're actually forcing into your hand. But if you're chasing all the time, then it becomes more about the chase and more about more. What more can I amass? What more can I go for? What other client can I get? Whereas when you're doing something because you love it and because you like to see people smile, whatever they give you, you're content with, and you're actually happy because you're like, oh, like when I do this, for example, right? When I set up a camera for someone, I don't do it because I want to get paid. I do it because I like someone's face when they don't know what's happening, and then all of a sudden magic happens and there's someone on the other end and the audio is great and the video is awesome. That alone is fulfilling. So whatever money comes out of that, I'm good with. And that
Mm.
really changed my life.
And so what I do
Yeah.
is I even have things where I'm like, there's never going to be money attached to it.
Mm,
Like I'm doing it because it fulfills something in me,
yes.
right? And there are other things that I do because I always wanted to do them,
Mm-hmm.
and chances are some money will come. So, like
Mm-hmm.
my podcast, I procrastinated on doing a podcast for 8 years,
Mm,
and then I started it. And
yeah.
I do other work to actually fund my podcast so far. And at some stage, somebody will go, okay, maybe can we advertise? Can we do the X, Y, Z? And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. And I will deal with that when that happens.
Yes, when the time
But
comes.
I'm not sitting and going, I'm structuring this thing to make money, right?
Mm, yeah.
And then there are things that I do which are for me to make a living.
Yes.
And that's why I'm doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So I write for a lot of different clients, and I write for corporate clients. I do
Mm,
content consulting for corporate clients, and brands.
mm,
So if I had hypothetically enough to be able to live the life that I want to live, would I necessarily do that work? Chances are not,
not. Probably not. Yeah.
right? Um, and so I'm able to That's how I compartmentalize stuff. So there's things that I do because they're a means to an end. They help me
Mm,
feed myself, help me feed my family, help me kind of live the life that I want to live.
yeah.
Um, and there's other things that I do that are work, and for somebody else they may be a job, but for
Yeah.
me, I'm doing it because it fulfills me. And then there are other things that I do just because,
Yeah.
like really trying to learn. I have a list of things that I want to learn how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently bought myself a calligraphy pen because I've
Oh,
always been
nice.
fascinated by calligraphy.
Yeah.
I have bonsai trees, like I grow bonsai trees.
Mm,
There's no way I'm going to monetize that, but I still devote time to it because it does something for me.
yeah.
And so I'm not existing in a constant space of work and what's going to
Mm,
come. So my line now is that I'm building a life.
yeah.
Work happens to be, you know, let's say income generating work happens to be
Yeah.
a portion of it, but it's
Yeah.
not the only portion. And ideally, I don't want it to be the majority of it. Like it needs to be balanced within everything else.
Yeah. I think interestingly, and I'm just gonna go into the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021. I'll just give you my experience.
Mm,
Uh, because I'd spent so much time not being in formal work, being at home was a different experience for me. For a lot of people, it was no work. What else do I do? I have to wait until I go back to work. For me, it was okay, what do I have here at home? I have a microphone, I have a computer, I have internet. And I have fast internet now because nobody's working. So there's all this free bandwidth lying around. And I've got eyes as well because everyone is at home, everybody's on their cell phone, everybody's on their computer trying to figure out what's going on. So I started making little videos about the COVID situation, and that translated into a version of what we're having now, which is conversations, but conversations primarily with individuals from the US, from Europe, and from the rest of Africa. So literally the entirety of 2020 built the foundation of what I have now.
mm.
And it's thanks to that mentality that you have of, it's not work, I'm adding value to my life, and if it's fulfilling, then I'm going to keep doing it. So I don't know how your experience was with the great lockdown.
So mine. So my friends joke and say I lived under lockdown before lockdown was invented. So I work from home and have worked from home like consistently since 2014.
Mm,
Before that, I had stints. So when I wasn't working somewhere,
Yeah.
whatever period it would be in between, I'd be working from home.
Yeah.
So I remember in the mid 2000s was when I was making sense of how my workday runs
Mm.
and not feeling guilty if at 2 o'clock I'm not sitting doing work. And
Mm.
trying to deal with the emotion, the emotion attached to that and the guilt attached to it, like, I should be working. So, but it's like if I don't have work, then why must I be working? I can go sit and watch TV if I want.
Yeah.
So, from I'd say from 2018, and then the whole of most of 2019, I worked from home fully.
Mm.
I had my office at home, I had a desk at home, and my wife also works for herself. So we had a shared office at home, and I've always worked at home. So
Mm.
when COVID hit and when the lockdown hit, the only thing that changed in my schedule was not having to drive my kids to school in the morning.
Mm.
Um, and so I was still like I was waking up to make sure that they were sitting in front of an iPad or a computer because fortunately their school was able to transition quite quickly.
Mm.
But I was just doing, I was living the way I'd always lived. There wasn't work. I mean, I struggled because I lost a lot of contracts. But in terms of like my rhythms didn't change. And even after we opened up, I still like this is my. I mean, we moved to a smaller place. I don't have an office
Mm-hmm.
anymore. It's like a corner next to the dining room table. But this
Yeah.
is what. So when I wake up in the morning, I wake up, I take my kids to school, I come back, and I sit right where I'm sitting right now.
Mm.
I do my work, and then in the afternoons, depending on like what I've got going on, once or twice, I'll have meetings. But even
Mm-hmm.
my meetings, for me, like meetings are everybody realized that we can do this. Like,
Yeah.
why must I drive across town to sit in front? So I was talking about. So I tweeted the other day. I mean, I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to, but I
Yeah.
tweeted the other day. So I did some work for a client. They're doing a like an annual report, and they asked me to help write some sections of this report. So I went to a meeting with them. And the
Mm-hmm.
only reason, to be honest, I actually said I will come to the meeting was because the person that was commissioning me, somebody that I knew some years back. So it was like, she's got this challenge at her work, and they need to pull on a writer last minute. So I said, "Do you know, it's
Mm.
fine. I'll come meet you at your offices." That's the last time I met them. And I had to do interviews. I did all my interviews with three executives online.
Mm-hmm.
We've been dealing with email. So I wrote the stuff, I sent it to them, it got sent back to me with comments. I sent it back. I sent them an invoice on Monday. On Wednesday, my money was paid. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's done. It took about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
The work is done. We don't need to be sitting in the same room having long conversations. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much redefining work. But let me ask this, do you think everyone has the potential of, how do I say it, of really, no, I don't want to say fleshing out or summarizing or because there's we go to work, right, every morning, and we are not as productive, right? Because someone will go to work from 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. And if you really analyze the productive chart, they'll only be productive for like 2 hours,
yeah,
to be honest with you. And this is so traditional and it's so entrenched in us, right? The idea of someone waking up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, sitting in front of the computer, and actually being more productive than someone who's in an office is unheard of because in our psyche, work is the office.
mm,
So, being productive is being at the office, and most
yeah,
of our employers, it's so crazy. They attach productivity to being at work.
yeah,
Whereas productivity, you can be productive in your bed. with your in your comfortable bed, with your cup of coffee, with your laptop in your laps, and you're doing a lot of work. And what I've noticed is, unfortunately, especially post COVID, my wife, for example, will work Saturdays at home because she loves her job, right? So she'll find that she's more productive on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening between 6 to 8 p.m. while she's watching Korean movies, right? But she's not getting paid extra money for that, you
Yeah,
see?
look,
And
I, I believe that. So for me, it's taking it a step back, right?
yeah,
So I felt that COVID was an opportunity for us to realize what's important for each of us in our lives.
mm-hmm,
So not every job can be done sitting at home. That's acknowledged,
sure,
right?
yeah,
Some require you to go in,
mm-hmm,
um, but at the same time, it's like I've seen this meme a couple of times, or like a message, something that goes out on social media, where somebody talks about the person who worked in the cubicle next to them passing away on Friday, and on Monday morning there's somebody new there.
mm,
Right.
yeah,
So for me it's understanding kind of what's important,
mm,
and COVID was the opportunity, the ideal opportunity for all of us. So, which includes employers, which includes managers and leaders. That there's more to life than just going into work. And I mean, I had friends who, because of lockdown, had never spent that amount of time with their families.
mm,
And I know that in China there was some statistics earlier. I don't know. I'm curious about the rest of the world where there was an increase in divorces.
yeah,
All of a
yeah,
sudden, all of a sudden you're stuck. You married this person, but when you
yeah,
think about like on a weekly basis, so on a daily basis, you're both going to work. You're both living life. How much time are you actually spending together?
together, yeah, actually together.
And
No,
you have
not passed out
yeah,
in the same bed, but like,
yeah, and just interacting, right?
yeah,
So for me, that was the opportunity, um, because I made that decision at some stage where I was like, I am not around, like I'm not present in my children's life, and they were quite young. But I was
mm,
working, I was stressed, I was always traveling, so I was
yeah,
never home. And then I realized one day that I was actually living a parallel life to my family. Like
mm,
they were living and doing stuff, and they would accommodate me when I appear.
yeah,
They didn't plan with me as part of the conversation.
yeah,
And so I try to make that shift to be more available, be more
mm,
present, right?
yeah,
Um, and at the same time, being able to look at work. So I'm a big believer in this idea of lifestyle design. To
mm,
look at work as not like work shouldn't be 80% of your life, and then everything else gets bundled into the rest.
mm,
So when I worked in a job, people used to talk about work-life balance, and somebody once said to me, "It's not about balance; it's about alignment and harmony."
yes,
Because it ebbs and flows. It's not
yeah,
static. You don't
that's
find a balancing point and then okay, good, I got it.
yeah,
So I used to look at it work, family, self, and on a weekly basis, I'd look at where I devote attention. So
mm,
how much am I putting to my work? How am I putting into my family? How much am I putting to myself to do the
yeah,
things I enjoy doing? And if, for example, for 2 weeks, it's been really focused on work, maybe the week afterwards, I'm going to try and shift it a bit more to family because I've taken away that time
yeah,
with work for 2 weeks.
no,
So
understandable,
I think it's what's important because there is no singular answer, right?
yeah,
What's important is people being open to having that discussion, to figuring out how to make it work. Because, like you're saying, so with your wife, if she's most productive at that period of time, then if if I am her manager, for example, I am her boss, am I measuring her on the delivery of the work that's being delivered,
Mm,
or am I measuring her on the hours?
you know,
So if I'm measuring on deliverables, um, then whether her bum is in the seat or not doesn't make a difference, and it shouldn't make a difference. So it's also being able to structure work where it's like, okay, I mean, that's how I've always worked, and I've been
yeah,
fortunate in spaces like that. Like,
yeah,
you tell me I must be there at 8 o'clock in the morning when you're getting your work. So if I get there at 11, but all my stuff is on time,
yeah.
ahead of time, then whether you're seeing me or not
It's
shouldn't be
inconsequential. Yeah,
it shouldn't be your biggest concern.
that's right. Now, just segueing a little bit into the biggest craze of 2023, and the whole idea of work and life and balance and harmony. And I had a conversation about this with a friend of mine yesterday. AI is the big craze now. ChatGPT has
I thought that was
completely it has completely turned the world inside out, literally. And I was being asked, a friend of mine who's in the creative space was asking me, he's like, Eddie, what do you think? Do you think we are going to survive the next 5 years with this monster, which is AI? I told him, I said, for me, it's allowing me to get work done a lot easier because the conceptualization stage is the hardest for me, where I have to go and research and pull ideas out of the darkest parts of God knows where and make it make sense to lay people, right? Um, and I told him, I'm like, it's making my life a lot easier because I can pull ideas from this machine very quickly. I can fact check them and I can turn them into something that I can present to certain people. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this AI craze is going to swallow us whole, or do you think we're going to make it through?
so there's I have multiple answers, and it's like you said, it's all the craze, and so it's been cropping up just in conversations. Like
Mm,
I've also been having multiple conversations with different people about it, and so so here's the first part. Um, so I always tell the story of virtual reality. Virtual reality goggles or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah.
The first time I put on virtual reality goggles was probably in 1999.
Mm,
I came to in Joburg. There used to be this big computer fair that used to happen, and because I had an IT company, we actually drove up from the sort of my father, and there was a stand, and they had these goggles, and the obviously the graphics were very simple then. Um, and they had gloves, and you put on the gloves, and you put in front, and you could see your hands, and it was going to revolutionize and change the world, right?
yeah.
Um, and like I'm still waiting, right? Virtual reality goggles came, the virtual reality came again about 5, 6 years ago, and there's the Oculus and all of these things, and it was going to change the world. Like it was going to change life as we know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, nobody's talking about them. 2 years ago, it became what the metaverse, and everybody was going to go jump onto the metaverse, and we're going to create this whole world, and everybody's going to be on there, and not
Came and
hearing as
went.
much, not
Yeah,
hearing
came
as
and
much. Right?
went. Same thing
Last
about
year,
NFTs, actually. Same story, right?
last year was NFTs, and I had a friend of mine who he's in the tech space, and he was like, "Could you?" So I developed a concept for like an NFT platform for Africans,
Yeah.
um, and even just trying to create this platform, I'm like, I live in Africa, so all of these things, and them going and changing the world. The Africa I live in, it's we have a whole bunch of other concerns. There may be particular
True.
spaces where it'll change, but in reality, self-driving cars, I saw the first autonomous vehicle Googles. In
Yeah.
2012, I was in a car on a highway in San Francisco, and I saw this thing drive past me with a guy in a passenger seat with a clipboard.
Mm.
Cars have been able to drive autonomously
Yes, for a
for
while now.
over a decade.
Yeah, that's true.
They still can't get it right in the US and in Europe, where they have structured roads. What are the chances of us getting it right, even in Johannesburg?
Yeah, true. Oh my goodness. Let's not go there.
So, so there's that, which is the second part of the conversation.
Yes.
The third point is, so somebody said, aren't you worried
Mm-hmm.
that AI is going to take over as a writer? And then people are talking about using it for proposals. Guys have been like, you can write a whole book, you can do this, you can get ChatGPT to do all of these things. And my first reaction was, well, if an AI can write a book, that book is probably going to sit on bookshelves like my book. Like I wrote a book and it's just sitting on bookshelves, right? And some people know about me and are interested in my story. Think of how many, when you walk into a bookshop, how many books are sitting on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
That'll sell one copy, two copies. So if an AI is going to write a book, like good luck to it. I was like, good luck to it. Like they'll just be like they're like the rest of us.
Like
It's not
any
like
other book.
it's going to be like somebody's like, oh, it was written by AI. I must buy this book. All right. It's like, oh, there's a book. Am I interested in reading it? No, not really.
Probably not. Yeah.
But what you talked about, I think, is the most important point.
Yeah.
The idea of AI and the idea of technologies, we keep having this conversation around being replaced. It's not about, for me, being replaced. It's about how it can amplify or how it can support you in
Yes.
what you're already doing.
That's
So, so somebody, and I saw a little quote where somebody said, a lawyer is not going to be replaced by AI. A lawyer using AI is going to replace the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And AI has been, so I use a software package called Descript,
Mm-hmm.
which you can do podcasting, you can edit, do video, all of that stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
I only use it for transcriptions because when I interview people, when I'm writing, it doesn't matter what I'm writing, when I have to talk to somebody, what I tend to do, because I use that as my foundation. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
talk to you, I'll take your words and I'll put them on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start writing using that. Those are my building blocks. Like I'll delete
Yeah.
this, interesting point. And it's like putting together a puzzle. That's how I
Yeah.
write writing an interview. So what I was traditionally had to do was if I have an hour interview, it's going to take me 2 hours to literally listen, pause, type, listen, pause, type, listen, pause, type.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just run it through Descript. And for me, it's the one of the best in terms of transcribing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just listen through and I'll read through to, because
Just
also
to find that. Yeah.
everything is Western, right? Everything is
Yeah.
American. So accents, the words that we use, our names. So I'll go through to just make sure that the sentences are accurate. So that's AI, and
No,
it's
I completely agree.
4 years, 4 5 years.
Yeah.
So the
No, I
hype. So my last point is the hype.
yeah.
Hype benefits American media. I hate to sound anti-capitalist, but what the hell? Um, it benefits American media. It benefits that entire ecosystem. Your
Mm.
VCs, your like literally that whole the old Silicon Valley
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem. Because when people get hyped about it, so we just catch on to it, right?
Yeah.
We just go, oh my god, because they're saying this is going to change the world. And it's in their interest to hype it up. It's in their interest. People have put money in places. People have done
Yeah.
whatever. The media, that's how. tech media. I used to write for tech. Like that's how tech media is getting the eyeballs. And we then just take those sound bites and go, oh my God, this thing is going to change our lives. And it's like, yo, I'm in Joburg. I am in Gaborone, I am in Dar es Salaam. Like, let's be honest. Like right now, in the form that they have it, um, I don't know that it's going to profoundly change our lives. It's important to
Yeah,
understand that it's there. It's important to have a sense of what's going on. But now to fall into a panic and a flat spin, um, it defeats the purpose. So I think about it in terms of I have children, so I need my children to be able to have an understanding of it. But it's more having an understanding of innovation because innovation,
yes.
like, it's going to constantly be changing. So the
Mm,
tools they need is to be able to navigate a forever changing space.
yes. Yeah. No, I
And that's
completely agree.
the important part for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, really well said. I mean, I gave the example of the dot-com era. Remember, if you remember the dot-com bubbles of the dot-com bubble of the 90s, it was pretty much the same thing where this internet thing is driving people crazy. Everybody's dying, is buying into it, dying to buy into it. And all of a sudden that bubble burst and here we are, right? We kept on going. Or if you remember the housing crash in the US in 2008, same principle where there's hype, people get into it, and those that know that after a little while, after that hype gets to critical mass, the bubble bursts, and we keep it moving, right? So
Crypto,
I do agree.
cryptocurrency was going to dismantle the international
The banking
financial system.
system, yeah, yeah.
It's still
Here we
people,
are.
people who are they're making money and it's going up. But you know,
Yeah, nothing
if you
is
didn't
coming
jump
out of
into
that. Yeah,
if you didn't jump into it, you're still fine. Like, you're
yeah,
still
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's the same thing with all of these things. There's nothing new under the sun, and we keep moving. Just to start wrapping up, I wanted us to touch on the idea of cigar smoking from an African perspective. For me, it's very people find it very strange. Like I've gone to spaces where I've almost gotten beat up because people think smoking a cigar is a sign of opulence, and I'm like, no, guys, this is just like smoking a cigarette or anything else. It's just a lifestyle choice, and it's just something that I like to do.
Mm.
And to this day, I've been smoking for a long time, and to this day, people are still not used to the idea of a black, especially a black man, an African man, smoking a cigar. So I don't know what your experience is on that one.
So look, the spaces I go into and the space that where like I've undergone the bulk of my journey
Hmm.
is a cigar and champagne lounge in Johannesburg, that's owned by a friend of mine, and the bulk of the clientele are black, right?
Mm,
So,
mm,
so other people come into the space and are surprised by it. But
mm.
I think what you're talking about is extremely accurate in that. So cigar smoking is not a cheap hobby. Like we can
True.
start there, right?
Mm,
But it's the idea of the cigars. Idea of cigars for me is like when the colonizers sat around in gentlemen's club and carved up the continent, right?
yeah, yeah.
They sat there with their with their cognac and their whiskey and their cigars, and that's the idea. And it's about opulence and it's about wealth and all of these things. Um, but the more I get into it, and the people that I'm around, it's about an enjoyment of something. And
Mm,
before we started, we're talking about like the craft of it,
yeah.
because how a cigar is made, it's like how wine is made or how
Mm,
whiskey or cognac is made. There's what a friend of mine used to call there's an alchemy to it.
mm-hmm.
Just from how the seed is planted and where it's planted right through to the end to aging. Um, and so somebody who enjoys a glass of wine, um, and is getting into, and wine, particularly in Southern Africa, is like it's, that attention and that interest has grown
It's booming. Yeah.
now understand and recognize the impact of the soil on your taste,
Mm.
your fermenting processes, your bottling processes, the glass that you drink out of, all of these things. So with cigars, because cigars continues to be niche, um, continues to be very niche, and it's still like a small and growing space. Like I think it's going to be a while before a while before we get people going, oh, okay. And you're in an environment where it's even like you'll say there'll be like a handful of you.
Mm.
Whereas in Joburg, I have access to and I'm exposed to a lot more people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's even the transition of people from, if we can get technical. So when I posted the cigar and you shared the cigar, when you're smoking a cigar, I'm sure the first question you get asked, Cuban.
Yes, definitely.
And it's like, and I tell
That's
people,
good.
I don't often smoke Cubans, because for me, what's coming out of Nicaragua, Costa
Mm.
Rica, Honduras, from a flavor perspective, from a blend perspective, it's a bit more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cubans were also priced a particular way. So
Yes.
a Cohiba is priced a particular way, and the prices went up recently because globally they pumped up the price by 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So there's even the business in the sector behind it, right?
Mm.
Uh, so because a lot of people, and I started the same way, I started smoking Cubans, and then I got exposed, and it's like, oh my god, like actually there's a whole world out here, and there's a lot more going on.
Yes.
And because of my personality, I've gone deeper into it, and I'm not alone. So there's you, like you were talking about kind of your journey,
Yeah.
and I think as more and more of us do that. So I'm in tracksuit pants and a t-shirt
Mm.
and sneakers. That's how I go to a cigar lounge.
Mm.
It's not a I don't have to dress up.
Mm.
And it's showing that it's about the enjoyment of the thing. Leave out the stereotypes around it.
Mm.
Focus on what the thing is.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like look, that's a journey. I think that's a journey that will be on for a very long time.
True. Very true. Just like our hair. Same thing.
Yeah,
In my
yeah, yeah.
opinion.
I finally, after many years of wanting to, I finally started.
Yeah.
Um, but also, I, I'm getting to the point where I think I have the liberty of age.
Yes.
So I just turned 51 a couple of weeks back, and I'm kind of like, I'm also at the stage where do you know what? I'm me.
That's right. Yeah.
My clients, when I do work, they're coming to me because of the quality of my work.
Yes.
And if you're going to come to me because of any type of stereotype or image that you may have, then maybe we weren't meant to work together. And I've had to deal with it in different ways. Like I have ear piercings, and I pierced my ears when I was 14 years old,
Oh
and
wow.
I've worn earrings. I mean, it's only because of lockdown, and I'm always home, so I always forget to put them on.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'd go into meetings. I have my earrings. I also have ink.
Yeah.
So I have enough ink, and over time, fortunately, I've been able to get to a situation where these people don't measure me on it.
Mm. No, it's amazing.
And if they do, then I really couldn't be bothered.
That's right. It's their loss, not
Yeah,
yours,
things
right?
to worry about. Yeah, I got bigger things to worry about, man.
That's right.
I got children to raise.
No, awesome, awesome. No, thank you so much. I think, you know, we don't have a lot of conversations like this, and it's sadly it's to the detriment of a lot of people because I know a lot of people out there who want to just break out of their shell and really start finding out about who they are. but for different reasons, they're not able to. So I'm really hopeful that this conversation we just had will kind of inspire them just a little bit. One of the things we touched will inspire them a bit just to think about it a little more. Um, but any last words? Any closing last words? Oh my goodness. Any any parting words as we close up the conversation?
So well, so the only parting words I have are, it's become my mantra over the last 2 years, particularly when COVID happens. Is like focus on what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
We spend so much time just focused on so far ahead, worrying about stuff. Um, when there's a value in, I mean, people talk about mindfulness or being present and the power of now, which I believe in. But how I've learned how to translate that into my life is literally, I focus on what's right in front of me. If there's
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity, if there's an experience, if there's whatever, it's like, okay, does it make sense in the general scheme of things? And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with it. I don't
Yeah.
sit and worry about, so I don't sit and worry about debit orders on the 10th of the month. I worry about debit orders when debit orders are here.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I tend
that
I
was,
tend to think retrospectively. I will worry about a debit order after it's come. I'm like, "Oh, what was that for?"
yeah. So it's just, yeah, I think being more present and putting our energy into what we're doing in that moment. I just find that, whatever you believe in the universe, etc.,
Mm,
um, stuff always works out.
yeah, no, agreed. No, thank you so much. I know for sure we're gonna have this conversation in person. Unfortunately, there will be no cameras.
All good.
There will be no cameras when that happens. But thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, this basically what's going to happen from here is I'm gonna go into editing. I'm probably gonna break up our conversation into sections, and then those are gonna go out like in also attention span in 2023. People can't sit down for 50 minutes and listen to people talk. So I have to break it down in like 10, 15 minutes sections and then release those as time goes on.
That's a skill I wish I had. So my podcast, just I don't. I have somebody who edits sound. I don't do
Yeah.
video now, and the conversation that happened, that's what goes out.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm learning how to edit. I've been learning how to edit. I jumped in the pool. Um it's once you get the hang of it, it's long, it's a very long process, but it's not difficult.
I just don't have time for it. So
Yeah, I feel you.
as you perfect it, I'm gonna send you my stuff.
Ah, nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So let me not keep you any further. It's been 53 minutes. Can you imagine? Like I thought we'd do like 20, 30 minutes, but we went on for almost an hour. Really appreciate the time. And I will keep in touch. And please keep sharing your nuggets with us. With the internet, it might seem like you're just typing on your phone, but it does have that reach, and it does reach the people who most need it.
Thanks, bro.
All right, no, cool. I'll be. Let me end the broadcast now, and so that let me just do this.